ॐ विश्वन्दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्रीपरमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ तपोभिः क्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते. I welcome you all to the 20th class of the Atma Bodha series. We will read verses 43 to 46 that we covered in the last class and then move further. अरुणेनेव बोधेन
अरुणेनेव बोधेन
पूर्वं सन्तमसे हृते
पूर्वं सन्तमसे हृते
तत आविर्भवेदात्मा
तत आविर्भवेत् आत्मा
स्वयमेवांशुमानिव.
स्वयमेवांशुमानिव.
Actually, this one we are supposed to read in the full line, so I will do that. It will be easier, I think. Atma tu satatam praptopyapraptavad vidyaya.
आत्मा तु सततं प्राप्तोऽप्यप्राप्तवद् विद्यया
तन्नाशे प्राप्तवत् भाति स्वकण्ठाभरणं यथा.
तन्नाशे प्राप्तवत् भाति स्वकण्ठाभरणं यथा
स्थाणौ पुरुषवद् भ्रान्त्या
स्थानौ पुरुषवत् भ्रान्त्या
कृता ब्रह्मणि जीवता.
कृता ब्रह्मणि जीवता
जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे
जीवस्य तात्विके रूपे
तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते.
तस्मिन् दृष्टे निवर्तते
तत्त्वस्वरूपानुभवात्
तत्त्वस्वरूपानुभवात्
उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा.
उत्पन्नं ज्ञानमञ्जसा
अहं ममेति चाज्ञानम्
अहं ममेति चाज्ञानम्
बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत्.
बाधते दिग्भ्रमादिवत्.
in these verses and some of the verses preceding these verses, Bhagavad is taking us through the process of Jnana Yoga. And in these verses, Bhagavad is talking about the Jnana Phalam. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. This is the essence of the Vedantic teaching. And when I receive this teaching, I say, Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya Aham Brahmaiva Naparaha. That I am Brahman, the absolute reality. This world that appears in front of me is not absolutely real. It depends upon Brahman for its existence. And as this absolute reality, Brahman, being Satyam, I am ever unaffected by this Mithya Jagat. This is the essential knowledge that I have to come to. And how do I come to this knowledge? Through the consistent and systematic study of Vedanta. Is it self-study? No, it is the study with the help of an acharya, a guru. And this is the process that Bhagavad indicated in the verse just preceding this one, where Bhagavad gave the example of the Arani Mathanam. Bhagavad compared this rise of knowledge to the creation of a fire in a Vedic ritual, as we saw. And how does that happen? The upper Arani, the upper rod, is inserted into this lower wooden base. And then the Ritvik churns the rod. And when this churning is done, then the sparks come, and those sparks are gathered in some dry cotton or some dry grass, and then placed into the Homakunda, where it becomes a flame, a fire, that consumes everything that is offered as an oblation to it. So as we saw, here the comparison is to Śravaṇam, Mananam and Nididhyāsanam, the triple process of Jnana Yoga, where the Guru inserts the upper Arani of the Vedanta Vakyas and the Mahavakya into the mind of the student that is compared to the lower Arani, the stable base. It has to be a steady base. The steadiness implies that the mind has to be a qualified mind. And then the Guru churns this upper Arani of the Vedanta Vakyas and the Mahavakya. And the churning is equivalent to extracting the meaning of these sentences. And when the Guru does this, the extraction of the meanings, then the same process takes place in the student mind also. That gives rise to these sparks of knowledge. And then subsequently, the student does Mananam again, which is another form of churning with the help of the Guru. And then once there is clear, doubtless knowledge, the student continues this churning in Nididhyāsanam, where the mind stabilizes in this knowledge. And then it becomes like a fire. Jnānāgnihi. And then that consumes all the oblations that are offered into it. And what are the oblations that are offered into this Jnānāgnihi? The first one is, as Bhagavad says, Ajñānen dhanam dahe. So the fuel, the fuel or the oblation of Ajñānam is offered into this fire. And then, of course, all the products of Ajnanam also, as we saw. So this is the process that Bhagavad Pada talked about. So here a question can arise that, okay, this fire is destroying the Ajnanam. But then how do I know the Atma? Because you have just destroyed the Ajnanam. How do I know the Atma? That's what Bhagavad Pada is saying in verse 43. He says that just the destruction of the Ajnanam is enough. Nothing more is required because the Atma is self-revealing, Atma is self-evident. Unlike knowing anything else in the world, if I have to know, for example, an object that is outside the mind, like a pot, then there are two steps involved in it because that pot is conceived by ignorance. I say, I don't know what is in front of me, or I say, I don't know the type of the pot that is in front of me. So I have ignorance, which means that ignorance is concealing the pot. Therefore, the ignorance has to be removed as the first step. But subsequently, that pot also needs to be illuminated with consciousness, illuminated in consciousness. And therefore, these two steps are required, which we call vritti vyaptihi and phala vyaptihi. The thought in the mind has to go out through my sense organ and pervade the pot. And this removes the concealment of the ignorance. And then this thought also carries the reflection of consciousness along with it. Therefore, when the thought pervades the pot, the reflection of consciousness also pervades the pot. Therefore, the pot now shines with reflected consciousness. This is what we call phala vyaptihi. Or in other words, this results in ghatakara chaitanyam. The ghatakara vrittihi in combination with chaitanyam is ghatakara chaitanyam or pot consciousness. Or in other words, pot knowledge. So for any object outside to be known, these two steps are required, vritti vyaptihi and phala vyaptihi. Now, how is the Atma known? He said Atma kara vrittihi is required. The Atma kara vrittihi removes the ignorance that is concealing the Brahman nature of Atma. I don't know. I know that I am there, but I don't know that this Atma is Brahman. So this ignorance is concealing the Brahman nature of Atma. And this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti removes this concealment of ignorance. So the Vritti Vyaptihi process is required. But then we say that is enough. The Phala Vyaptihi process is not required in case of Atma. Why? Because Atma is of the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is required to illumine every object that is outside the mind. But Atma, being of the nature of consciousness, is the one that illumines everything, and therefore that itself doesn't need to be illumined. Therefore, Bhagavad Pada is comparing this to the way the sun reveals itself in the morning. Initially, the initial rays of the sun that we call Aruna or dawn, that removes the intense darkness of night. But once that intense darkness of night is removed, then the sun just reveals itself. Nothing more is required. So similarly, the Atma is self-revealing. The Atma is already present in every experience as this I. But the problem is that because of ignorance, the Atma is wrongly understood. And therefore, when this Aham Brahmasmi Vrittihi removes the ignorance, removes the self-ignorance, then the same Atma that was present in every experience and was wrongly understood is now rightly understood. That is the only difference. Then in the next verse, Bhagavad Pada is talking about Atma tu satatam praptaha api apraptavat bhati. So the Atma, as we said, is already the full, complete, limitless, Purnaha. Atma is already accomplished. I am already full, complete, limitless, Purnaha. But the problem is, I don't know that I am full, complete, limitless, Purnaha because of ignorance. So the fullness, completeness, limitlessness, Purnatvam of the Atma is already accomplished. But then, because I don't know that I am of such a nature, I take myself to be deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurnaha. I take myself to be this limited body mind. And then I'm struggling in this world. Why? Trying to gain that fullness, completeness, limitlessness, purnatvam. This is what we call samsara. So now what is creating the distance between the seeker and the sought? The seeker is already full, complete, limitless, purna. But not knowing that I, the seeker, am already full, complete, limitless, purnaha. I take myself to be apurnaha, and then I'm seeking something. What am I seeking? I'm seeking to become full, complete, limitless, purnaha. So this is exactly like the lady with the necklace. Swakantha bharanam yatha. Like the lady with the necklace on her neck somehow thinks that the necklace is lost. So the lady with the necklace is now in search of the necklace. The lady with the necklace is trying to become the lady with the necklace that she already is. It is a very strange situation that ignorance brings about. So what is creating the distance between the seeker and the sought? The distance is created purely by ignorance. There is no distance in space. There is no distance in time. Right now, here and now, I am already full, complete, limitless, Purnaha. I just don't know it. Therefore, it is ignorance alone that has created this distance. So when ignorance has created this distance, no matter how much I travel in this world, I cannot remove this distance. Because wherever I go, the ignorance will be there. Similarly, no matter how much I wait it out, as we said, waiting can never remove ignorance. The ignorance will be there even 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or even in the next Janma and next Janma. The ignorance goes only by one method. Ajnanam goes only by jnanam. And therefore, the knowledge has to be gained. The lady who is seeking the necklace has to gain the knowledge that what I am seeking is already accomplished. My search itself was an invalid search. My seeking has to stop because what I have been seeking is already accomplished. So similarly, one has to come to Vedanta and through the Mahavakya, Vichara, gain this knowledge that I am already that fullness, completeness, limitlessness, Purnatvam that I am seeking. It is already accomplished because it is my very nature. And my seeking for Purnatvam, my seeking for Moksha is really an invalid search because it is already accomplished here and now. And therefore, when one gains this knowledge, it is not that one is accomplishing something new. When the lady gained the necklace, did she really gain the necklace? She did not gain anything new at all. She just understood that whatever I was trying to gain need not be gained. The same thing applies here as well. The seeker does not gain anything new at all. He just understands that whatever I was struggling for That is already accomplished. Any struggle in this world in order to accomplish that is a meaningless, invalid, futile struggle. It need not be, it need that struggle. I don't need to engage in such a struggle at all. And therefore, praptavat bhati. Annashe praptavat bhati. So it is as though accomplished through knowledge. Then Bhagavad-pada, so in these verses, Bhagavad-pada is giving us the first jnana phalam, the first jnana phalam, which is ajnana nivrittihi. Removal of ignorance is the first jnana phalam. Then in the next verse, verse 45, Bhagavad-pada is talking about the second jnana phalam, which is adhyasa nivrittihi, removal of superimposition. So whenever there is ajnanam, it is invariably followed by adhyasa. When the samanya jnanam is there of a particular vastu, but the vishesha jnanam is not there, then I invariably end up mistaking that. And Bhagavad-pada gives the example of the sthanu purushaha, where the stump of a tree, there's just a stump of a tree, but in semi-darkness, it is mistaken to be a choraha, a thief. Why? Because one knows something is there that appears to be in the form of a human being. Samanya jnanam is there, the vishesha jnanam that this is a stump of a tree is not there. And therefore, one mistakes that to be a choraha. As we have seen, atasmin tat buddhi. In the not that, I see that. In the stump of the tree, which is not a thief, I see the thief. This is the superimposition. This is the adhyasa that invariably happens because of ajnanam. So the same thing happens here as well. I know that I am the self-evident Atma is unmistakably there, which I call I. But I don't know the Brahman nature of the Atma. The Vishesha Jnanam is not there. And therefore, I superimpose the Jivata. Brahmani Bhrantya Krita Jivata. In Brahman, I superimpose Jivata because of ignorance, Bhrantya. And what is this Jivata? It is this conclusion that I am this mortal, limited being in this immense world, under control of forces way beyond my control. I am a samsari jiva. All of this is what constitutes this jivata. So now what is the solution for this? So how do I dispel the chora? I take a torchlight and then I shine the torchlight to find out what is really here. And then I discover that it is just a harmless stump of a tree. It is a realization, but it is really a realization of my own ignorance, of my own mistake. There is no other realization other than the realization of my ignorance, of my mistake. And that realization itself of my ignorance removes that ignorance. So then, what about this case? What is the equivalent of the torchlight? We say it is the Mahavakya. The Mahavakya, since who I am is not accessible to any other pramana other than the Shabda pramana of Vedanta, I have to come to the Mahavakya, and through the Mahavakya, I understand my real Brahman nature. Through the torchlight of the Mahavakya. And when I know that I am Brahman, that dispels the Jivata, that dispels this Jivatvam that I have superimposed on Brahman. So Jivasya Tatvike Rupe Tasmin Drishte Nivartate. Then in the next verse, Bhagavad-pada is talking about the third jnana phala, which is connected to the removal of adhyasa of this jivatva. It is basically an elaboration of the adhyasa, of the removal of the adhyasa of jivata, which is the removal of ahankara and mamakara. Because when I am ignorant, I take myself to be this body. I say I am this body mind. That is the ahankara. When I say I am the body mind, that is the ahankara. And then when I say that through this body mind I am connected to some other anatmas, like my family, possessions, profession, etc., then that is mamakara. So I say I am this body mind, and this is my family, these are my possessions, this is my profession. Now, when one understands one's Brahman nature, then Brahman is of a higher order of reality. I understand that I belong to a higher order of reality. I am the Satyam. And as this Satyam, I also understand that I cannot have any real connection with this Mithya body and mind, because the body and mind are in a lower order of reality. And therefore, the ahankara goes away. The ahankara is falsified. And once the connection with the body and the mind is falsified, then how can one talk about the connection with other anatmas that happen through the connection with the body mind? When I have removed the foundation upon which the something else is resting, then once that foundation is removed, the thing will also collapse. So similarly, mamakara rests on ahankara. If ahankara is taken to be real, if this connection with the body mind is taken to be real, then there is no way of avoiding the reality of the connection with the family, possessions, profession, etc. But when the connection with the body mind itself is falsified, then how can I say that the connection with the family, possessions, profession, etc. continues to have reality? Even that gets falsified. And therefore, aham mameti cha ajnanam badhate digbhramadevat. So all of this, it's not that there is a sequence of things happening here. The moment if I'm confused about directions, but then I spot the sun in the midst of the clouds, then my ignorance of east is gone. When my ignorance of east is gone, then simultaneously my ignorance of the north, west, south, etc. also goes. So similarly, the moment the ajnanam is removed, like we saw the ajnanam carpet, the moment the ajnanam is removed, then all of this ahankara, mamakara, etc., that also is removed. So we'll go to verse 47. Samyak vijnanavan yogi
सम्यक् विज्ञानवान् योगी
स्वात्मन्येवाखिलं jagat
स्वात्मन्येवाखिलं जगत्
ekam cha sarvamatmanam
एकं च सर्वमात्मानं
ईक्षते ज्ञानचक्षुषा.
ईक्षते ज्ञानचक्षुषा.
So here, Bhagavad is teaching us the fourth jnana phala, which is a total transformation of the vision of the Jnānī. Bhagavad here says, Ikshate. we see the second line. Ekancha sarvam atmanam ikshate. Ikshate means he sees. So who sees? In the first line we have Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi. So Samyak Vijnanavan Ikshate. The one who is Samyak Vijnanavan, he sees. So what does Samyak Vijnanavan mean? So generally we have been using the term Jnanam for the Aham Brahmasmi Jnanam. But in some other contexts, the word Vijnanam is used to refer to the same Jnanam. The Aparoksha Jnanam, Aham Brahmasmi Jnanam, is referred to by the term Vijnanam. So in some places, some texts also distinguish between Jnanam and Vijnanam, where Jnanam is then Jnanam refers to Paroksha Jnanam, that Brahman is there. That Jnanam is called Jnanam. But the Aparoksha Jnanam, that I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, that is called Vijnanam. So here, Vijnanam refers to the Aparoksha Jnanam. Therefore, Vijnanavan means Aparoksha Jnanavan, the one who has this Aparoksha Jnanam that I am Brahman. And as we have seen, this Jnanam arises only through the consistent and systematic study of Vedanta. Therefore, this person has gone through Śravaṇam. But then Bhagavad is adding this adjective Samyak Vijnanavan. What does that mean? So Samyak here refers to doubtless, clear. Therefore, Samyak Vijnanavan means one who has doubtless, clear Aparoksha Jnanam. So what is the difference between Vijnanavan and Samyak Vijnanavan? As we said, Vijnanavan is one who has gone through Śravaṇam. Samyak Vijnanavan is one who has gone through Śravaṇam and Mananam. So he has got this doubtless, clear knowledge. But then what kind of Samyak Vijnanavan is he? Bhagavad says Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi. Yogi means that refers to the Jnana Yogi. He has led a life of discipline and he has done Śravaṇam and Mananam because he is a Samyak Vijnanavan, but he is also a yogi. And that means that he just does not, it is not that he just has doubtless clear knowledge, but he has also eroded the habitual tendencies that are contrary to this knowledge. Therefore, he has gone through Nididhyāsanam also. Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi is one who is abiding, who is a Jnana Nishtha, who is abiding in this knowledge that I am Brahman. Even in times of crisis, he does not forget this knowledge. Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi. Ikshate, he sees. So what does he see? The first line says, Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Swatmani Eva Akhilan Jagat Ikshate. So Akhilan Jagat, Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Akhilan Jagat Ikshate. He sees the whole world. Where does he see the whole world? Swatmani Eva. Swatmani eva. Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Swatmani eva Akhilan Jagat Ikshate. This is the transformation of the vision that we are talking about. He sees the whole world is in me. So what is the vision of the Ajñāni? Let us contrast it with the vision of the Ajñāni. Vision of the Ajñāni is that being identified with this body mind, he says, I am a puny creature in this immense separate world. And I am under control of forces that are way beyond my control. And therefore, I am dependent upon this world for my existence. Therefore, is the world is the adhara. This world is supporting me, and I am the supported. I am the adheya. Supporter is called adhara. Supported is called adheya. So he has this vision that the world is supporting me. I am supported by this world. This is the vision of the Ajnani. But what about the Jnani's vision? As we said, Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Svatmani Eva Akhilan Jagat Ikshare. So he has a knowledge. So with this knowledge, he looks upon himself as this all-pervading, imperishable consciousness that is Brahman. And therefore, this changes the game altogether. It turns the tables completely. And therefore, the world becomes supported and I become the supporter. The world becomes the adheya, I become the adhara. So as we said, worlds arise in me. Like bubbles in the ocean, budbudaniva varini, as we saw. Hatake katakadivat. Like ornaments arise in gold or bubbles arise in the ocean, these worlds arise in me. So this world arises in me, it is supported by me, and it resolves into me. Mayeva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam, mai sarvam layang yati. The vision of the Jnani is totally reversed. This is the transformation of the vision. So whatever, it is not just the things in front of me that I am seeing right now, that this computer or this wall or this window, etc., whatever is there in front of me, not just those things are in me, but the entire earth, the entire solar system, all of these galaxies, in fact, the entire universe, including this space, the entire space, it is in me. We start with the first shloka in every class. Vishwan darpana drishyamana nagari tulyan nijantargatam. The world is like this reflected city. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari. I suppose there is a city and I keep a mirror there. Then in the mirror, the city is reflected. The entire city with all its lights. You can imagine that there is this city with its skyline. They talk about the skyline of the city with all the lights. And from a distance on a hill somewhere, you have a large mirror. In that mirror, the entire city is reflected. So where now? Let us forget the original city. Let us just look at the reflected city. Where is it? That reflected city is supported by the mirror. It is mithya. So, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. This world is like that reflected city in the mirror. This world has a dependent reality. Who is it dependent on? It's dependent upon me. Tulyam Nijantargatam. Nijantargatam means it is in me. World is in me. Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahi Iva. But due to Maya, this world appears to be outside. Bahihi iva udbhutam. It appears to have arisen outside of me. So the one who's taking this outside world as a reality is the Ajnani. Whereas the Jnani says the entire thing is in me. The difference between the Jnāni's vision and the Ajnani's vision is like difference between day and night. In fact, Bhagavan Krishna refers to this in the Bhagavad Gita also, where he talks about the difference between the Jnāni's vision and the Ajnani's vision. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam. Ya nisha, ya sarva bhutanam nisha. That which is night for all the beings. Tasyam jagarti sanyami. In that which is the night for all the beings, this Jnāni is awake. Which means that this Paramarthika Satyam that the Ajnani is not aware of, the Jnāni is awake to this reality which we call the Paramarthika Satyam or Brahman. And Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani, that reality in which all the beings are awake, which is the Vyavaharika Satyam, which where he sees the separate world. Sa Nisha Pashyato Munehe, the wise one. Pashyato Munehe, for the wise one. This is night. This is a product of ignorance. It is darkness. Therefore, Bhagavan also contrasts this vision of the Jnāni and the Ajnani. So both the Jnāni and the Ajnani live in the same world, but their visions are diametrically opposite. So we may get a doubt, is it really possible? This Jnāni is saying that, this entire world is in me. How is that really possible? How can I even begin to imagine something like that? We say, whenever in doubt, come to the dream example. We come to the dream example. So in the dream example, what does the dream individual who is ignorant of his waker status, what does he say? He says that this world that I see in front of me, this is a separate world. I am a limited mortal being in this separate world that I am seeing. If you were to interview the dream individual, he would say this. And then I am struggling in this dream, I am being persecuted by this world, etc. And how long would he say that? As long as he is in the dream. For the dreamer, the dream is not a dream in dream. For him, that is the reality. Ya nisha sarva bhutana. But then now contrast this when he wakes up. Once he wakes up, what does he say? His vision undergoes a transformation. He says that that world was in me. That world was in me. It was not away from me at all. So as the waker, I am totally unaffected by whatever happens in the dream. As the waker, I am the supporter of the dream. As a dream individual, I was being supported by the dream world. The dream world was the adhara, I was the adheya. But after waking up, I become the adhara. The dream world and the dream individual are both supported by me. They become the adheya. So now imagine that somebody who has woken up and understands this reality, which is the waker. Now, if this person re-enters the dream and then tells the people there that this entire dream world is in me. So the people around him in the dream, they would then say, this fellow is only 5 feet tall. How can the whole world be in him? But then what he's saying is really true because he has discovered the reality that is the waker, that the other people are not aware of. Similarly, here as well, the Jnani has discovered the Paramarthika Satyam, that is Brahman, and he knows that I am one with this Paramarthika Satyam, that is Brahman. The others around him are yet not aware of it, and therefore the doubt arises. Or we can take another example, which is the example of the wave and the ocean. So the wave, if the wave could talk, the wave might say that I am this limited wave in this ocean. In this entire ocean, I am a limited wave. I am being supported by this ocean. But then I have a limited existence. One day I will crash to the shore, and that will be the end of my life. That will be the end of my existence. But now let us imagine that the wave has discovered that it is really water. It is really the material cause, which is water. Once the wave discovers its identity with water, then from the water's drishti, if it sees, what will it see? It will see that both the wave and the ocean are in me. And therefore, Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Swatmani Eva Akhilam Jagat Ikshate. And then in the next line, Bhagavad is saying, Ekancha Sarvam Atmanam Ikshate. The Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Sarvam Ekam Atmanancha Ikshate. This Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi sees something else, where he goes one step further beyond this. He goes one step further. When I say the world is supported by me, then it means that this world and the body mind. When we say the world, we include the body mind. So the world and the body mind are supported by me. In this also, there is the drishyam and there is the drik. The drishyam drik duality is there. The object subject duality is there. The drishyam is supported by the drik. The object is supported by the subject. This object subject drishyam drik, supported supporter duality is still there. So we say once one has come to this point, then one has to make a slight elevation of this vision. From this vision, there is a slight elevation that is required. And what is that elevation? This duality also has to be swallowed. This Dvaitam also has to be swallowed. How? Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Sarvam Ekam Atmanancha Ikshate. Ekam cha Sarvam Atmanam Ikshate. By seeing that this world is in a lower order of reality, and I belong to a higher order of reality. So just like this dream world, the dream world rests in the waker, it is of a lower order of reality. Similarly, I, the Satyam, I am the Satyam, this world is a lower order of reality, and this world is only my Nama Rupa. Just as the dream world, all those Nama Rupas in the world were in the dream world were my Nama Rupas. They are all my Nama Rupas. So similarly here as well, this world, everything here is my Nama Rupas only. Ekam cha sarvam atmanam. So this world is me alone. Let us think about how Ishvara would say. Now, Ishvara has used the Maya Shakti and projected this world. When Ishvara uses the Maya Shakti and projects this world, he says, I alone appear as this entire world. Much like when I use my Nidra Shakti and project the dream, I should really be saying, I alone have appeared as this dream. Similarly, I alone as Brahman, I alone, with my Maya Shakti, have appeared as this world. This is the next step in the vision. And this is what the first shloka of of Dakshinamurti Stotram also says. As we saw, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyan Nijantargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahirivo Bhutam Bahihi Iva Udbhutam. It appears to be outside. Yatha Nidraya, just like this dream world, appears to be outside. And then once one has awakened, what does one say? Svatmanameva Advayam. Svatmanameva Advayam. I am the non-dual reality. There is nothing else apart from me. I alone am. When I alone am, how can this world be something else other than this I? This I includes this world also. All of these Namarupas are my Namarupas. I am the only non-dual reality. That's why Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Svatmanameva Tvayam. Yes, Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye. Once one has awakened, one sees Svatmanameva Tvayam. That I alone am the non-dual reality. There is nothing else other than me. Therefore, everything here is my Nama Rupa. So how does the Jnani see this? Does he see this with his physical eyes? Bhagavad Pada says no. He says, Jnana Chakshusha. Ekam ja sarvamatmanam ikshate jnana chakshusha. He sees this with the eye of wisdom, with the eye of jnanam. He sees it with the jnana chakshuhu. This is what Shiva's third eye also represents. It is the eye of knowledge. Therefore, the Jnani also has this third eye, which is the eye of knowledge, Jnana Chakshuhu. So the physical eyes continue to report the duality. It is not that the Jnani sees lights everywhere or something else. With the physical eyes, the Jnani continues to see that there is this body mind and then there is a world outside. He continues to see that with the physical eyes. But then with the Jnana Chakshuhu, he understands. He goes beyond what the physical eyes show him. For example, Swamiji gives the example of a chemist. So to a chemist, if you show the chemist a piece of coal, he will say, "What?" And you ask him, "What is it?" He sees the coal, but he says it is carbon. And if you show him a diamond, ask him, "What is it?" He will say, "That is also carbon." So is he seeing? Are his physical eyes reporting carbon in both the cases? No. So it is the eye of chemistry knowledge. Through the eye of chemistry knowledge, when he sees this, he sees only carbon there, nothing else. So this is his Jnana Chakshuhu. But then in Vyavahara, that one goes by the names and forms. For example, if the chemist's wife becomes emotional, and then she begins to shed some tears, then he doesn't say that this is NaCl. He doesn't say that you are shedding sodium chloride plus water right now. So at that point, he puts on the costume around that knowledge. He puts on the costume and then he deals with those tears the way they have to be dealt with. He might wipe them out. So similarly, the Jnani, even though he has this knowledge, in this Vyavahara, he continues to don the costume and then do what is required in Vyavahara. So the Jnānī has got this Sarvātmabhāva. He says this is Sarvātmabhāva, where he sees everything as I, everything as my Nama Rupas. Then the next verse, we'll come to the next verse that continues on the same theme. Atmaivedam jagat sarvam.
Atmaivedam jagat sarvam.
Atmanonyanna vidyate.
Atmanonyanna vidyate.
Mrido yatvadghatadini.
Mrudo yadvat gatadini.
Svatmanam sarvamikshate.
Svatmanam sarvamikshate.
So as we have seen, there are two stages in this vision. The first is everything is in me. And the second, which is a jump from there, is that everything is me. Sarvātmabhāva. So this verse continues with that idea. Idam jagat sarvam Atma eva. Atmaivedam jagat sarvam, says the verse. And we rearrange it, it becomes idam jagat Atma. Idam jagat sarvam Atma eva. So again, we are elaborating on this vision. This is similar to saying that the snake that is seen is nothing but the rope. So how can the snake be the rope? Because one is falsely superimposing what one is falsely seeing as the snake. We would explain that what you're falsely seeing as the snake is nothing but the rope. So the snake is a superimposition. The separate snake is a superimposition, an error. The world is me. Similarly, we say the world is me, the Atma alone. What is falsely seen as the separate Jagat is nothing but me, the Atma alone. It is again a superimposition. Really speaking, there is no separate thing called the world at all. Just like there is no separate thing called the snake at all. It is just the rope appearing as a snake. There is no separate thing like this dream world at all. It is just the waker appearing as the dream world. Similarly, there is no separate thing like this world at all. It's just the Atma or Brahman appearing as this world. So, Anyat na vidyate, he says in the first line, Atmaivedam jagat sarvam Atmanon anyan na vidyate. Anyat na vidyate. There is nothing else other than what? Other than Atma. Atmano anyat na vidyate. There is nothing else other than Atma. There is no second thing other than me. So we may ask a question here that, okay, you're saying that the world, there is no world separate from you, the Atma. There is no separate world other than I, the Atma. But then is there a separate God? Is there a separate Ishvara other than this Atma? So here, Swamiji points out, whenever such questions are asked, Swamiji always advises don't answer such a question, but instead ask a counter question. Ask a counter question. And what is a counter question? What do you mean by God? Do you mean by Ishvara, by God? Do you mean an entity that is an object of your experience? Or do you refer to the very subject, the Atma? So if the person says that what I am referring to is an object, like a god, the god that is resident somewhere in a particular location, or a god that comes and goes, and even that god, being an object, is dependent upon the Atma, upon Brahman, for its existence. And therefore, even that God who comes and goes, who is located somewhere, depends upon the Atma, upon Brahman, for the existence. And therefore, even that God is mithya. It is not the ultimate reality, not the absolute reality. But if somebody were to say that Ishvara that I am referring to is not an object, but is the subject, is the subject. And we say that God being the Atma, there is no second thing other than the Atma. Again, that fact still holds true. Therefore, Atmanaha Anyat na vidyate. There is nothing else other than Atma. That statement will hold true for that God who is the subject. And therefore, that God becomes none other than Atma, that is Brahman. So, Ishvara as a separate object is no doubt useful, very, very useful for the purposes of Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, because it is only through the grace of such an Ishvara that I can gain the purity of mind. But once I have gained the purity of mind, this separation between the Jiva and Ishvara has to go. That is why one comes to the Mahavakya and sees that the Jiva and Ishvara are identical. There is one essential underlying reality that pervades both the Jiva and Ishvara. And I am that essential reality. And with the costume of avidya, with the costume of karana sharira, with the costume of the body mind, I, that essential reality alone, appear as the jiva. And with the costume of maya, I, that essential reality, alone appear as Ishvara. Therefore, Atmanaha Anyad Kimapi na vidyate. The Jiva is an appearance of Brahman in the costume of body mind. Ishvara is an appearance of Brahman with the costume of Maya, and this world is an appearance of Brahman with the costume of Namarupa. And therefore, there is one essential reality underlying Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara, and that I, the Atma, am. Atmanaha Anyanna Vidyate. Svatmanam Sarvam Ikshate, says the second line. If we look at the second half of the second line, Svatmanam Sarvam Ikshate. Therefore, I alone am. So as we said, from I am small is the vision of the Ajñānī. But then when that SM, the self-misconception is removed, self-ignorance is removed, then one comes to I am all, which is the vision of the Jnānī. And Bhagavad-pada gives an example. Mrido yadvat ghatadini. So yadvat mridaha anyat ghatadini na vidyante. Mrit refers to clay. So just like we have clay, and the clay is transformed into various names and forms. You have made a pot out of it, you have made a jar, you have made some lid and a spoon, etc. All of those are made of clay. But what is really there is clay alone. Everything is a nama rupa of clay alone. And therefore, similarly, I as Brahman I am the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. I am the changeless material cause. And everything that I see here, whether it be Jiva, whether it be Jagat, whether it be Ishvara, whatever is here is just me with different costumes, with different Nama Rupas. We go to the next verse. Jivan muktastu tat vidvan
Jivan muktastu tat vidvan
पूर्वोपाधिगुणांस् त्यजेत्
पूर्वोपाधिगुणान् त्यजेत्
सच्चिदानन्दरूपत्वात्
सच्चिदानन्दरूपत्वाद्
भवेत् भ्रमरकीटवत्.
भवेत् भ्रमरकीटवत्.
Bhavatpada is indicating here Tad Vidwan. Tad Vidwan means Atma Vidwan or Brahma Vidwan. Atma Vid, Brahma Vid. So he knows the Atma, he knows Brahman. And how does he know the Atma? How does he know Brahman? As Sarvādhishthānam Advayam, as we saw in an earlier verse, that I am the Adhishthānam of everything here. And such a person, Tad Vidvan, is a Jivan Muktaha. Jivan Muktastu Tad Vidvan. He is a Jivan Muktaha. Jivan Muktaha means Jivan Eva Muktaha. Usually in other kinds of philosophical systems, people say that you will achieve muktihi after death. Marananantaram eva muktihi bhavati. After death. But in Advaita Vedanta alone, we say that there is this Jivan Muktaha who is liberated even when living. The same Jnānī is called Jivan Muktaha, liberated when living, because he knows I am unconditionally liberated. And how does he know? How is he so sure? Because he knows that I belong to a higher order of reality. Everything else is in a lower order of reality. And what is in a lower order of reality cannot touch that which is in a higher order of reality, just as the mirage water can never wet the sand. The dream world can never affect the waker. Or a dent in the gold ornament, a dent in the bangle can never affect the gold itself. The Namarupas, whatever happens to the Namarupas, it can never affect the Upadana Karanam. This is the fundamental law. Therefore, he knows that I, as this Vivatta Upadana Karanam, that I am Brahman, that I am eternally liberated. So the prarabdha may affect the body. Body will go through various changes because of prarabdha. The prarabdha may also affect the mind. Mind may go through various changes because of prarabdha again. But he knows that as the Atma, as this Vivatta Upadana Karanam, that is Brahman, I am ever liberated. So this is the primary benefit. The primary benefit of this knowledge is really the freedom from the body-mind. We should note the preposition freedom from the body-mind. And this is achieved purely through knowledge and knowledge alone. Knowledge of the real nature of who I am. When I know that I belong to a higher order of reality, that is instantaneous moksha. Because moksha is my nature as that higher order of reality. It is instantaneous liberation from the body and mind, purely through knowledge and knowledge alone. But then there is a second kind of liberation, which is the secondary freedom, which is freedom of the mind from sorrow, freedom of the mind from from various viparita bhavanas that are contrary to this knowledge. So freedom from sorrow, or freedom from raga, dvesha, etc. So that is a secondary freedom, which is a byproduct of this knowledge, followed by Nididhyāsanam. One gets this secondary freedom also of the mind. Freedom from sorrow, freedom from raga dveshas, freedom from these viparita bhavanas that are contrary to the knowledge. And this requires this long nididhyasana. But as we have said, there is no perfect mind. Even the mind of a jnani is not perfect. So this secondary freedom, which is freedom of the mind from sorrow, etc. Freedom of the mind from these negative reactions. That is not absolute. Even a jnani's mind may have such occasions where there is a negative reaction. But then the freedom from the mind comes in. The primary liberation is always there in the form of that knowledge. That freedom from the mind comes in, where that jnani recognizes that the mind that is having the negative reaction, that I am. And therefore, that also doesn't affect the liberation of the jnani. Therefore, he is Jivan Muktaha. He enjoys both that primary freedom from the body mind and also the freedom of the mind from sorrow and negative reaction, etc. So, Jivan Muktastu Tad Vidvan, he says, Tyajet. Tyajet means he gives up. What does he give up? Purvopadhi Gunans Tyajet. He gives up the attributes of the upadhis. So as we have seen, the attributes of the upadhis, meaning the attributes of the sthula, sukshma, karana, sharira, etc. The attributes of the sthula sharira are the षड्विकाराs, asti, jayate, vadhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyate. And the mortality of the body, the limited nature of this body, which is limited in space, limited in time. So these are attributes of the body. He gives up these attributes. And similarly, attributes of the sukshma sharira, like these raga, dveshas, kama, krodha, etc. He gives up these attributes also. And attributes of the karana sharira, like the ignorance, which is anyway destroyed because of knowledge. And all of these karmas, etc. They are also given up. So purva upadhi, he used the term purva upadhi, because after jnanam, the upadhi no longer transfers its attribute. Before the jnanam, the attributes of the upadhi are taken to be my attributes. Just like the redness of the flower is taken to belong to the crystal. The attributes of these upadhis are taken to be my attributes because of non-recognition of my real nature. But after jnanam, when one knows one's real nature, these upadhis are given up. And how are they given up? By knowing that they are mithya, they belong to mithya, they belong to a lower order of reality. I belong to a higher order of reality. I have no connection with this sthula, sukshma and karana sharira. How can I have a connection with the attributes of the Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Sharira. And therefore, Purvopadhi Gunans Tyaje Satchidananda Rupatvat, by recognizing that I am of the nature of Satchidananda that belongs to a higher order of reality and untouched by the lower order of reality. And Bhagavad gives an example here, Brahmara Kitavat. He says, Bhavet. So Bhavet Brahma. This knower of Brahman becomes Brahma. He was always Brahman. His knowledge, with his knowledge, he knows that I am Brahman that belongs to a higher order of reality. So he figuratively becomes Brahman. Just as the lady with the necklace figuratively attains the necklace. And Bhagavad gives an example here of Brahmara Kitavat. So this Brahmara means a wasp and Kita means a worm. So this here Bhagavad gives the example of the legend of this wasp and the worm. There are various legends that we come across, and some of them may have some basis in what has been observed in nature, and some of it may not have a real basis in what has been observed in nature, or something has been observed in nature, but it has been somewhat twisted a bit. So there can be all kinds of legends. So this is a legend that was popular in the culture at that time. And even since through the references in the Shastras, it continues to be known to us also as a legend. And in Sanskritam, it's called Brahmara Kita Nyayaha, means the example of the Brahmara Kita, the wasp and the worm. So what is this example? So let us understand the example first. The example is of a wasp that builds a nest. The wasp builds a nest, and usually, as we have seen, the nest of the wasps, it has a hole. It has a hole in the front. There's just one hole through which the wasp goes in and out. Now the wasp catches hold of a worm, Kita. The Brahmara catches hold of a Kita and brings it and puts it in the nest. So this worm is now helplessly sitting in a nest. And the wasp comes and sits in the opening. So the nest is now a very small nest, and the worm can only look at the wasp. And now to make things worse, the wasp stings the worm once in a while. So the worm is now frightened of this wasp and continues to look at this wasp. And it cannot help but think of the wasp. So it continues to think of the wasp as if it is meditating on the wasp, contemplating on the wasp all the time. When is it going to sting me next? Right? And then tongue, the wasp stings the worm. And then the worm again is terrified and continues to look at the wasp, waiting for the next sting. So it is constantly thinking of the wasp. And now the legend goes that this worm eventually becomes the wasp. So this is the observation, that the worm becomes the wasp. But now there are some theories about how the worm becomes a wasp, and one of them is that when this wasp stings the worm, at that point it puts one of its eggs into the worm, and the egg hatches inside the worm, and from that egg there's a baby wasp emerges. A baby wasp emerges that eats up the worm, finally breaks open the upadhi of the worm and emerges as a wasp. So it is figuratively said that the worm becomes the wasp. So this is the example. So now let us look at it. The parallel here is that this wasp is like Brahman and this worm is the Jivatma. Jivatma has this measly worm-like existence in samsara, and therefore it's figuratively likened to the worm. The Jivatma is like a worm. And the wasp is the free Paramatma, Brahman. That is ever free, ever liberated from this samsara. Because it can fly around like a bird, it can fly anywhere it wants. Figuratively, this wasp is free, and the freedom is like the freedom of Paramatma, freedom of Brahma, which is its very nature. So now, this wasp, how does it become, this worm, how does it become the wasp? Through the process of Śravaṇam, Mananam, and Nididhyāsanam. First of all, this jiva gains this knowledge. And through this knowledge, and then once this knowledge has been gained, does Nididhyāsanam, which is like this contemplation of the worm upon the wasp. This Jivatma, after having gained the knowledge, stabilizes the mind in this knowledge. Then this knowledge becomes like this fire that consumes everything. And then this Jivatma gives up the upadhi of Jivatma with this knowledge, breaks open out of this body-mind upadhi. Purvopadhi gunan tyajet, he said. So he breaks open out of this upadhi, means gives up the attributes of the upadhis and becomes one with Brahman. So this is the example Bhramara Kitavat. So this next verse, I think we are running out of time now. So the next verse we will continue in the next class. There's an interesting example where the entire journey of the Jivan Muktaha is compared to the story of Ramayana. We will take that verse in the next class. We will conclude now. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.